Here is the river Nalanda at the central. And from here, several 100,000 years back, these people who lived here were skilled gatherers. People who gathered here food. They knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surrounding forest, connected roads. Fruits and other forest produce for their food, and also hunted animals. Suleiman and Kirtar Hills to the northwest. Some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat, barley. About 8,000 years ago, are located here. And people also began rearing animals like sheep, goat. Bush. So the animals were sheep, goat, and the cattle, and they lived in villages near the Garo Hills. Where is the Garo Hills? The northeast. Okay, the side of the Garo Hills, northeast, and the Vindhyas in the central. Okay, some areas where agriculture developed. The places where rice was first grown at the north of the Vindhyas. North of the Vindhyas, right? In the areas of Chambal. Trace the river Indus trees about 4,700 years back. Some of the earlier cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. Later, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and tributaries and along the sea coast. Okay, 4,700 back in the tributaries. The early cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. And about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries along the sea coast. Okay, fine. This was several hundred years ago, 100,000 years ago. Skilled gatherers and hunters, and 8,000 years ago, the first began to grow crops, rice, wheat, and barley in the Suleiman and Kirtar Hills to the northwest. And where does the agriculture developed? Garo Hills to the northeast and Vindhyas to the central. And rice was first grown to the north of the Vindhyas. Early cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. Later, about 2,500 cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coast. This is a map of South Asia, including the countries India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka. And the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, Iran, China, Myanmar. South Asia is often called a subcontinent because the small continent is very large and is separated from the rest of Asia by seas, hills, and mountains. Okay. The five Indus River tributaries are the Chenab, Ravi, Sutlej, Peace, and Jhelum. Jhelum. The five rivers of Punjab. These are called. Okay, the Ganga Indus tributary called the Sun. In ancient times, these rivers to the son of the Ganga was called Magad, now lying in the state of Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and head of a large kingdom. Okay. South of the Ganga. Yeah, this is the south of the Ganga. Okay, this area is known as the Magad in the earlier times, now lying Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and they set up a large kingdom. Kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. Throughout the people travel from one part of the subcontinent to another. The hills and high mountains were the hills and high mountains, including the Himalayas, deserts, rivers, and seas, made the journey dangerous at times but never impossible. So men and women traveled and moved in search of livelihood, as also to escape from natural disasters like floods or droughts. Some men marched in armies, conquering others' land, and besides merchant travel through caravans or ships carrying valuable things, and religious teachers moved from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instruction and advice on the way. Finally, some people perhaps travel driven by spirit of adventure, wanting to discover new and exciting things. Also, this led to the sharing of ideas. Okay. a large kingdom, and people travel from one place to another in search of livelihood, and due to natural disasters also, like floods and droughts. And when Martian armies and conquered others' land, merchants traveled with caravans or ships with valuable goods from one place to another. And the religious teachers, they also walked from village to village and town to town to give advice and instructions. And the other thing, all the common peoples also moved for their adventure and discover new and exciting places. So these all led to sharing of ideas between people, and where people travel nowadays because there's the Himalaya. As mountain seas form the natural frontiers of the subcontinent. Okay, yeah, natural frontiers of the subcontinent, and while it was very difficult to cross them, and then those who wanted to did the scale of mountain and cross the seas. People from across different tires also came into the subcontinent and settled here. Okay, and enhanced our culture, traditions, enriched our culture and traditions. Okay, now the people share new ways of cooking food and carving stones and music. These kind of composing musics over several hundreds of years. And the names of the lands is, yeah, one is India and Bharat. Okay, the word India comes from the Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit, and the Iranians and Greeks. They both are familiar with the Indus, and they came through the northwest. They came through the northwest. Okay, about 2,500 years ago. And called it the Hindus or the Indus, and the land of the the river. East of the river was called India. The name Bharat was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest, who are mentioned in Rigved. Today's composition in Sanskrit dated about 3,500 years ago. Later it was used for the country. And there are several ways to find about the past. One is to search for and read books that were written long ago called manuscripts. Because the original list comes from the Latin Manu means sand. These were usually written on palm leaf or on the specially prepared bark of a tree known as the birch, which grows in the Himalayas. Okay, so 2500 years ago, Iranians and Greeks came from the northwest and called and familiar with the Indus, so called it Hindus or Hindus, and the land of the east. I'm sorry, the land to the east of the river, the land to the east of the river, called India. Bharat means a group of people who lived in the northwest, and mentioned in Rigveda also. Rigveda was composed from 3,500 years ago. There is a very ways to find the search for and read books. There is called manuscript. There is a manuscript which is written long ago on a palm leaf or specially prepared from the bark of a tree called birch. And yeah, it grows in the Himalayas. Over the years, when it was eaten by it was eaten by insects or destroyed, or some survived in the uh, temples or monasteries. So these books dealt with all kinds of subjects like religious, religious beliefs and practices, the lives of kings, medicine, science. Besides this, there was epics, poems. There were epics, poems, plays. Okay, mostly it is written in Sanskrit, and the other language is Prakrit, ordinary language of people. I mean, like languages used by ordinary people, and Tamil also. The second method is study inscriptions. Inscriptions are the writings on relatively hard surfaces such as stone or metal. Inscriptions are the writings on relatively hard surfaces such as metal or stone. Sometimes green got the orders inscribed so that people could see, read, and obey them. And there are other kinds of inscription as well, where men and women, including kings and queens, recorded what they did. For example, kings often kept records of victories in battle. There were many other things that were made and used in the past. Those who study these objects are called archaeologists. They study the remains of buildings made of stone and brick, paintings and sculptures. They also explore and excavate beneath the surface of the earth to find tools, weapons, pots, pans, ornaments, and coins. Some of these objects may be made of stone, others of bone, baked clay, or metal. Kings and queens recorded the recorded the recorded what they did. Okay, kings often kept record of its victories in battle and things that were used in past, used made on past. Okay, those who study these objects are called archaeologists. They study the remains of buildings made of stone and bricks. Those who study these objects is called archaeologists. They study the remains of buildings made of stone and brick. Those who study about these objects are called archaeologists. They study the remains of buildings made of stone and brick, paintings and sculptures. Also explore and excavate to find tools, weapons, pots, pans, ornaments and coins. Some made of stone, bone, baked clay or metal. Objects that are made of hard, imperishable substances usually survive for a long time. This is a Greek language, and this is Aramaic, which were used in this school what by Subhadras as urban model Kandahar, present day Afghanistan. It was inscribed on the others of a ruler named Ashoka. When we write anything, we use a script. Scripts consist of letters, signs, when we read what is written or speak, use a language. This description Greek and Aramaic. Okay, imperishable substances. Archaeologists also look for bones of animals, birds, and fish to find what people ate in the past. And plant remains survive far more rarely. Yeah, if seeds of grains or pieces of wood have been burnt, they survive in a shard form. Historians, that is, scholars who study the past often use the word source to refer to the information found from manuscripts, inscriptions, and archaeology. When sources are found, learning about the past becomes an adventure as we reconstruct it. So historians and archaeologists are like detectives who use all the sources like clues to find out what must have been found out. Okay. What must have money. Notice the title have been used the word past and program to draw. Reconstructed bit by bit. Did you notice that? Okay. The past was different for different groups of people. So I just people follow different practices of customs. The village most family with animals. Get their own from fish and hunting and collecting forest produce. By contrast, most people living in cities depend on others for supplies of food. Differences suggest these ancestors in the past as well. While archaeology helps us to find out about their lives, there is much that remains unknown. And if somebody asks you the date, you'll probably mention the day, month, and year, like 2000 and something. These are the years counted from the date generally assigned to the birth of Jesus Christ, the founder of Christianity. So 2000 means 2000 years after the birth of Christ. All dates before the birth of Christ are counted backwards and usually have the letter BC before Christ added on. In this book, we refer to the days going back from the present using 2000 as our starting point. Okay. BC we have seen the start before Christ and AD. AD means the Anno Domino. It is a two Latin word means in the year of the Lord. That is Christ, obviously. So 2012 can be also written as AD 2012. Sometimes he is used instead of AD and BCE is used instead of BC. The letter CE stands for Common Era and BC stands for before Common Era. And letters PP means before present are used. Okay.